Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I will share with you a very beautiful kilak bag recipe whose model belongs to a famous brand. I want to share our model with you closely. Look, it is very easy, a very nice example, one of the most enjoyable models knitted with paper yarn. I want to show the base like this. Look, we will use 5 colors. If you want, you can do it in 1 color, 2 colors, or you can use your leftover yarns at home in this work. I want to show you the mouth part at the edge of the decoration like this. Lining and zipper will come inside, but I will have described the model to you up to this stage. I shared all the details with you step by step. Let's see our bag in detail. Look, this is a very neat and beautiful example at our end and start point. I shared all the details with you step by step. In the video, you can find all the details such as our measurement, how much yarn I used, how many grams of yarn I used. I hope it will be a useful content. Before moving on to our detailed recipe, I want to make a small request from you. You can subscribe to our channel for free. I would be really happy if you like the video and do not forget to leave your comments. Let's move on to our recipe. I will use spaghetti oil paper yarn for my bag. I used 5 colors in total and 1 ball of each color was enough. However, if you take 1 more ball for the background color here, that is 2 balls of the background color and 1 ball of each of the other colors, I think you can easily make 3 bags out of a total of 6 balls. Let's examine the yarn right away. First, let's look at its content. The mixture is 100% paper, its weight is between 130, 150 grams, and it is 250 meters long. Look, it is an easy paper yarn to knit. I really like the paper yarn of spaghetti oil. Its ball-like shape and its softness really make our job very, very easy. Look inside the nest. I took out the end of my yarn. I want to show you its texture closely. Its texture is like this. I use these colors. But the paper yarn of spaghetti oil has many different color options. You can visit spaghettiyag.com and look at different color options. I will also add the link to the description section below. Now here, the crochet hook number I will use will be 3.5 mm. You can determine your own crochet hook number according to the thickness of your own yarn, the tightness and looseness of your knitting. First, I start with a chain. After locking my first chain, I prepare my starting chains so that they are a little loose from the setting I knitted. Now for my bag here, look, we will pull 45 chains in total to make it in the size here, but since I will make a smaller example here, I will pull a certain amount of chains. The model does not consist of a certain number. You can base your model on the number of chains you want. We don't need a certain number. You can start by pulling as many chains as you want, but if you are going to do it in the size I gave, definitely start with 45 chains. But for example, your yarn is thin or thick. There may be differences in the measurements, especially even if we use the same yarn and the same crochet hook size. Your measurement may be a little less or a little more than the measurements I gave. This will also change depending on our knitting density and looseness. It is also useful to state this. Now here, look, I pulled my chain a little bit. For my big piece, I started with 45 chains. Now I'm turning the reverse side of the chain, not the straight part. We'll use these dotted lines on the back. Look, it's the only one. Look, we will use these parts by inserting into the yarn points. Now I am not inserting into the last chain, I am leaving the last chain. I inserted into the back cut line of another chain and took out a loop. I have 2 loops, I am filling them. I knit my single crochet by passing through both of them. We will knit a row of single crochets like this. I come and insert into the next point. I knit my single crochet again into the back cut line of the chain. Now we will knit our single crochets by inserting into the points I have shown. You can do this work with a base. You can apply this model on oval, rectangular, or ready-made bases. If you are really curious, we can do this model that way with you. But as I said, assume the same logic again. You have knitted single crochets on the ready-made base or on the rectangular base you knitted. The number does not matter. You can directly establish the model. Now let's knit our single crochets here until the last chain. I have come to the point where the last chain is. I insert into the back cut line of the last chain and knit my single crochet. Look, I am coming to the same point. I knitted the yarn like this, short yarn. I am inserting into the same space by holding it on the yarn. I made a loop. I will bring the short yarn like this and hide it. I am knitting my second single crochet here. Look, we will knit 3 single crochets into the last chain. I am coming to the same space. I am knitting the third single crochet by hiding the short yarn. I knitted 1, 2, 3 single crochets on the way back. Then look at the bottoms of the single crochets and the spaces where the chain is. Now when we insert the chain, this time we will see 2 lines, one on the other side and 2 on this side will be visible. Now, look, we have made a turn. We are not turning the knitting over. I am saying this for beginners. Those who know how to knit will do this part anyway, but look, the knitting continued on the chain. We only made 3 here and passed to the other side. We are not turning the knitting. We have come to the point where our chain is. 2 lines are seen. We will continue by inserting 1 single crochet in this part and on this side again. Until the last point. Look, we have come to the last point here. I am coming into the last chain. I am knitting my single crochet at this point here. After knitting this single crochet, I insert the top of the first single crochet. I took a loop to the top space. I slide the loop I took out. With this sliding point, we have obtained 3 single crochets. In the last chain, look, we knitted 1 at the beginning. We made a sliding point at the end. With this 3 single crochets, we have obtained the needle point, that is, look at each other at the beginning, and the last 3 gaps have been formed. Now the model continues in order. Also, look in reverse, the flat point of the tight needles will be the flat point of the outer part of the bag. Now we will continue. We will pull 2 chains with this color and turn the knitting. We fill our hook. See, we continue in reverse. Now we will definitely sink into the slip point. I sink into the slip point. I took off a loop. There are 3 loops I am filling. I sink into the next gap. I sink into the next gap and extend the loop again. Definitely pull your loops long so that the long loops that show this model are like this. We have 5 loops. Look, I'm filling. I collected 5 loops at once. We collect this much and leave it. We do not do any closing, etc. I'm filling directly. I come to the last gap. I sank again. I extended the loop. At this point, I am filling. I sink into the next gap. I extend the loop. See? The knitting model is only this much. Now there are 2, 4, 5 loops here. I am filling. I collected 5 loops at once. I am filling. I knitted the last gap. I sink into the next gap. I remove the loop and extend it. I'm filling the next. I am taking out and extending the loop again by sinking into the gap. I have obtained 5 loops and I am filling. I have collected 5 loops in one go. Yes, we will continue now. Look, the model will progress in this way. We will sink to the last place we sank, and we will continue in this way by sinking to the next point and pulling long loops. And when we come to the last part, look at the same points. We will continue in the same direction by making our return from here without turning the knitting. We will have advanced to the point we first started. Since we have established our model directly on the single crochet, look, since we did not knit the base, when we turn to this corner during the model, the bag is immediately hollowed out. Now we are at the last point. Look, I am filling, I am sinking into the last space I knitted again. I have extended my loop. I am filling. See, the last point we will sink is this. It will be like this in every row. Look, the point where 2 chains come out is the last single crochet we made here. Look, the exit point of these 2 chains is definitely sinking into this part. You will see this when you take it in your hand. This point is our last point. There are 5 loops. I am filling. I am collecting 5 in one go. Now my row is complete. Look, I have 2 chains. After 2 chains, it looks like this. The point is formed. Look, it is like a peak point. This should not mislead us. We will not sink here. We will sink to the next point. We will immediately turn it like this. Look, we will easily see the peak gap here. Now here is 1, 2 chains, 3. Peak point and the next point. Look, we are sinking to this part. We have taken a loop from here. We are sliding the loop we have taken out from the waiting loop. Let's not leave too much space. We will pull a chain and cut the yarn since we will change the color here. It is enough to cut 5 centimeters. Now look, we have pulled a chain here and made a lock. Since we will also use the space we have made by sliding, we are sinking to this point. Look, we are sinking to a further point. Also, when we do this, there is no gap in this part of the bag. In other words, there is no gap in the end and beginning parts. If you sink to the first point, you will see that there is a gap. Now look, this is the flat part of our model. Look, the place with serrated grooves is smoother inside. The inside has a flatter appearance. In other words, the flat part of this tight needle is the flat side of the knitting and the flat part of the knitting at the point that looks serrated grooves. Now I will take another color. Now we move on to a different color. We will do the same process when changing to each new color. We start by creating a loop with a chain. Now we will start from the point we finished each time. Immediately look, pull a chain from the space we made a slip, and knit all of them in reverse. The top spaces are clear. Now we knit it in reverse. We finished. Now we will knit plain. The tight needles will always be in the plain direction. It will be visible on the outside of the bag. And now look, I want to show an example here. When I was knitting, the plain part was here. Look, each of these has a top space. These are quite clear. Look, it looks spike by spike. When you take it in your hand, you will see how easily it sinks. We will always work on these points. They all look spike by spike. Look, each top space of the model looks like a spike, like the top space of a tight needle. And last, look, we will use it at the slip point. At this point, slip, and we see a chain now. We turned it like this. Look, this is the reverse part of the knitting, but we knit tight needles from plain. We do the model in reverse. Now we created our loop in a chain. I made the finish. Look, a chain and slip. I am immediately inserting into this slip space. I took out a loop. You can also do this. Count the ears at this time. You can count the top spaces, or during the tight needle, how many tight needles you have knitted here. You need to knit tight needles like that. You can adjust it like this. If you are very beginner now, I am inserting into this slip point. I took out a loop. You have 2 loops. I take the short yarn in between. I created my first tight yarn. Immediately look, I will visit the short yarns at this stage. I am inserting into the next point. Look, very wide spaces. Top spaces are obvious. I knit tight needles from plain to the top of each one. Look. In this way we will knit our tight needles. We know that we asked with tight needles. Now we will knit tight needles by inserting them once at the top. We start the new color with tight needles. See, we started from here. We will knit our tight needles from the corner and come until the first dot. Look here, we have come to the end of the row. The last dot I will insert. See the peak point. I insert this dot. I knit my tight needle, and now I am coming. See the hole that is? We knitted all the spaces with tight needles. I am coming. I insert to the top of the first tight needle. I took off a stitch. I slid the stitch I removed from the waiting stitch. We will also use this slip. We will accept the slip as the top space. Then I go up with 2 chains as we did in the bottom row, and I turn my knitting upside down. I am filling. See, I also insert to the slip point, that is, each point looks like a spike here. 1, 2 chains, our gap is coming immediately. I wrapped it around my hook after 2 chains. Look, we turn the knitting, we continue in reverse. I inserted into the gap that came. I extended my stitch. I am filling. I immediately insert into the next one. I extended my stitch again. I collected 5 stitches at once. I am filling. I come to the last gap. I insert it again. I'm sinking. I'm extending the stitch. I am filling. Next point, look first. In the last space I sank. Then by sinking 1 forward, we obtain 5 stitches in this way and collect 5 stitches at once. Then by wrapping directly, I am sinking in the last space I sank, extending the stitch, filling, sinking in the next one, and extending the stitch again. In this way we collect 5 stitches at once and create the model. At this stage, if you think I'm knitting too fast, you can slow down the video or conversely, speed it up. Look, we will continue the model like this now. The model progresses very easily, especially if there are those who have difficulty with paper rope. I recommend that you start with this model first. It is a really fast-paced example. Look, it progresses very enjoyable like this. Now we will knit the whole thing. Of course, I'm spoiling it with my hand now. We will continue from here. Now let's come to the point we started. Let's quickly share with you the tricks of the end and beginning here. Now look, we are approaching the end of the row. Here I am sinking into the last space. I knit it again and extending my stitch. I am sinking 1 forward. I collected 5 stitches. Now look here, when we look like this, the last point, look, I am filling the last knitted point, I am sinking again, I am filling the last space, I will sink the space that is the exit of 2 chains. Look, the space where 2 chains come out. I have shown this in the lower row in this space. See, we are using this space when we see 2 chains, we sink right to the bottom. So when you see 2 chains like this, we are also using the space here, we sink to this point and extend our loop. We have obtained 5 loops, we collected them in one go. And now we are coming here. Look, 2 chains. Our going up chain is quite obvious after 2 chains. When you follow the peaks, look here, there is 2 chains, 1 collection point, and also look, there is the peak of the model, which is dense like this. Look at this, not this. This is the point we will finish by sinking every time. Not the point with chains like this, but just ahead. Look, we will sink into the next space. If you do not sink to this point, because we are using shifts. If you use both shift and sink to the point here, a gap will be created and an increase will occur. Your bag will not go straight. The increase will continue from here. It is also worth mentioning this. In other words, it is important to use that point to go straight. Since we use shift, look, not the point here, but a gap of 1 or 2 chains will come to the top. Next, we sink into this point, pull out the loop and make our slip. Look, we accept the slip as a head space. We pulled one of our chains and immediately cut our rope about 5 centimeters like this. We took it out of our loop, we tighten it like this. Look, let's do the hand ironing like this. Model. Look, my anxiety is going up. I'll show you how to go up right away once again. Then we will finish the edge of our bag. We are starting with a chain again. Look, I am starting from the point where I finished. Look, I am coming from the point where I made a slip. Look, I am making a slip chain right away. I am sinking from the slip point. I made a loop. I am knitting my single crochet right away. Look, I am knitting it plain. This is the single crochet part of our bag. We are continuing the single crochets plainly. And these are also quite evident in each of the peak spaces. Don't make it complicated. When you take it in your hand, you will see that you can do it easily. Sometimes when we work on a model, we get stuck somewhere. We need to take a break there. Look, these are very easy models. Sometimes when our minds are very busy, we may have trouble focusing. Sometimes it doesn't work. If you try over and over again and can't do it continuously, take a break for a while. Then when you return to the model, you will see that you have done it. I'm saying this because I have experienced it. If there are those who have experienced this, I would be very happy if they write in the comments below. Now, look, let's make single crochets, then we will move on to the model again. After the model, look, we will repeat the same process in these 2 rows. We will continue by slipping, going up 2 chains, and setting up the model again. Now, what did I do here? I continued the same process here. Look, but here we were slipping, pulling a chain and breaking the yarn. Here, without breaking the yarn, I came directly to the point where I made the slip without cutting the yarn and continued knitting with a single crochet after a chain. Look, I came by knitting these single crochets in the last color and these ground color. And I sank the last point. I want to show it right away. Look, the point I sank. This was my first slip point. I sank the last point here. I sank this point too. Look, we do not cut the yarn when we set up the model in the last row. After a chain, we start the slip point directly with a single crochet and knit our single crochets in the same way as we knit from plain. Now we sank the last single crochet. Now the slip points are coming. Look, we will make the final decorations now. I'm coming here. The top of the first single crochet is right on top of this. I took off a stitch. I slid it from the waiting stitch. I'm sinking. I took off a stitch to the top of the single crochet. I passed the stitch I took off through the waiting stitch. See, I'm slipping, I'm sinking. I took off a stitch. I'm slipping like this. Let's count a little bit like this. Even, look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make 6 slips. After 6 slips, we make 1 chain. I'm filling with crochet. Here, now we'll make the buds. After a chain, I wrapped. See, I'm coming to the same space. I slipped. I slid into the last space at this point and took off a stitch. There are 3 stitches. I'm filling, I'm knitting the first 2, the other stitch is waiting, I'm filling, I'm sinking into the same space for the second time. I took off a stitch, I'm filling, I'm collecting the first 2 stitches, the other stitch is waiting, I'm filling, I'm sinking into the same space for the third time. I took off a stitch, I'm filling, I'm knitting the first 2 stitches again. See, the other stitch is waiting, I'm sinking into the same space for the 4th time and knitting the first 2 stitches. The stitch is waiting, I wrapped, I'm sinking into the same space for the 5th time and knitting the first 2 stitches. In total I have 2, 4, 6 stitches. Now I am pressing the knitting lightly from the inside out. I wrapped it. I collected 6 stitches at once. Then I pull my 1 chain. Look, we have created the bud. After 1 chain, I am inserting into the top of the next tight stitch point. I took a stitch out of here. I slipped it from my waiting stitch. Look, we have created the bud like this. Now this is my first slip. I will make 2 slips to the next one and 3, 4, 5, 6 slips to the next one. Look, we have made 6 slips. Now I will have made the same bud here again. After 6 slips, I am pulling a chain. I am filling it into my hook. I am knitting the first 2 stitches by inserting into the same space 5 times. I am waiting the other stitches on the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Look, 2, 4, 6 stitches are formed. I am also pressing from the inside out. And I wrapped it. I collect 6 stitches at once. Then I make a chain. Then I fold it in half to give it a little bud look. I fold it in half so that I can sink in easily, and I pulled out a stitch by sinking into the top of the next tight needle, and I'm slipping it. This is my first slip, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Look, I will make 6 slips. Then I will make a bud. 6 slips, then a bud. Look, we will have finished the decoration like this. Now I will give the measurement in centimeters. Let's repeat. We started with 45 chains. We described the knitting pattern. We are making color transitions in each row. Our background color is clear. Look, we have 4 different colors that we added in between. We have used a total of 5 colors. Now just like this. Let's say the width of this knit is 30 centimeters. If we hold it from the base, it is 30 centimeters. And if we say the length from this sliding point, it is close to 22 centimeters. The length of our bag is like this. That is, we can say 30 centimeters by 22 centimeters. Because I am thinking of ironing the steam feathers lightly, we are finished. What will we do next? We will cut our thread on the edge and hide the thread inside. Then we will do lining on the inside. If you want, you can sew a zipper directly instead of lining. This is completely up to your taste. In this way, we will have completed our bag. Let's cut our thread immediately. Finish it and complete our bag. We completed our bag by doing it at the end as we described to you. We have 7 balls in total here. 7 balls again in the front. It is done in the back. In total, I used 150 grams of katip for my bag. Our recipe was like this. I hope you like it and try it. I wish ease to those who will do it in advance. Don't forget to like our video, leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye until we see you in the next video.